The narrative begins by showing a trailer somewhere in one of the state parks of the United States. A woman named Dakota offers romance to a man to earn money. The man who is with her holds an important position in the city, but he is acting unfaithfully toward his wife, doing impure things. After the fun, Dakota asks for payment and tells the client that she will leave, as she must be home before midnight. However, he does not release her at the appropriate time. She becomes upset with the man's despicable attitude and remains waiting for the payment. They are inside a trailer, spending the night peacefully. A few minutes later, standing and looking at the covered window, Dakota sees a silhouette passing quickly, as if it were circling the vehicle. She suspects nothing and remains there, in her corner. Suddenly, the sound of breaking glass echoes from the bathroom, where the man was. Suddenly, the scene shows a terrible creature brutally attacking him. When Dakota goes to check the compartment, she sees only chaos and blood spread everywhere. She screams in panic and tries to leave the trailer, but suddenly is attacked by a robust and fierce creature, which soon drags her into the darkness of the forest. In the following days, the news presents a report about the cases of brutal crimes that have been happening in a small town in the United States, Boggy Creek, more specifically inside the state park. People do not know who is responsible, but some claim they may be fierce animals, such as wolves, foxes, and bears. Others claim it is the feared Bigfoot, or something even more terrifying, such as a mystical man-devouring creature. However, in the city there is a known criminal named Eddie, who is on the run after receiving accusations about the crimes and, due to the fact that he has already been guilty of theft with assaults, deaths of civilians, involvement with illegal products and other malicious acts, many believe that he is a cruel man. He does not like the accusations, but a flashback shows Eddie a couple who were preparing illicit material. Nevertheless, the evil and the atrocities persist in the following days. A man of the law, Sheriff Jim Taylor, is on patrol along the road that cuts through the forest of the state park. He reflects on the bad things that happen and laments that many of them arise at a moment of apparent peace and quiet, overturning the population's tranquility. One morning, he sees a vehicle pass by, but does not stop it. It is a passenger car, where there is a group of friends who are going to venture and spend a few days in a camping area belonging to one of Leonard's relatives, but they are going without permission from the authorities, since the place is forbidden and closed. His friends are his girlfriend Emily, Stephen, who tries to flirt with Jane, but at that moment she does not wish to please him, and the third couple, Beth and Joe. They feel happy for having a moment of leisure together and talk about everything pleasant they will do. After half an hour, they arrive at the entrance that will take them to the destination. Leonard cuts the rope that blocked the stretch, and afterwards, they proceed to the place, which has not been visited for years. The scene then advances a few hours, and we see them having fun, practicing sports, but Emily prefers to stay resting. Leonard tries to approach her, but she rejects the kiss, claiming to have a headache and not wanting to get involved in romance at that moment. This upsets the man, who moves away soon after. On the other hand, the other couples enjoy the leisure moment and have fun with each other. Moving away into the clearing, Jane runs, attracting her boyfriend for a romantic moment, wishing to please him. Everything goes well until, upon hearing a noise behind him, Stephen turns around and is attacked by a tall, strong, and hairy beast, which growls fiercely while brutally finishing him. At the campsite, the others remain calm, but soon are surprised by the terrifying beast. It is revealed to be a werewolf-like beast, which, with its claws, rips Leonard's throat. His companion Emily is grabbed by two other creatures, which mercilessly kill her. The other couple, seeing the terror happening outside the tent, run to the car and accelerate to escape. Sometime later, it is already night, and while Beth drives the car, Joe panics trying to understand what the creatures that attacked them were. Not far away, Jane, who survived the previous attack, runs desperately through the forest. Suddenly, she appears on the road and ends up being run over by her friends. The two, seeing who they accidentally hit, decide to get out to see their friend, but suddenly are attacked by the bestial beasts. The next morning, after the young people do not return, The authorities are taken to the clearing, where they only find chaos and death, with parts of the adventurers scattered. Soon after, Mayor Davis arrives, questioning why the young people were there, confronting the attitude of the officers for allowing their passage to areas considered dangerous during the summer, since attacks by fierce animals are common at that time. Davis insists that the sheriff and his men do the job properly, as the death of a known civilian has already happened, whose father, who has influence in the city, furiously questioned the irresponsibility and lack of security for his children. Davis says that the sheriff must keep these deaths secret and prevent more idlers from camping in the state park. Then he frightens the man of the law about the fact that the governor may become aware of the many crimes that have been occurring in the city and cut funding due to lack of proper security. After his departure, Jim Taylor talks with his companion, named Danny, about the fact that the footprints on the ground are not compatible with those of an adult bear. In another place, Greg, a dismissed member of the local police, drives calmly, but with the appearance of someone intoxicated. At a certain point on the road that cuts through the state park, he abruptly brakes the vehicle. The one who made him stop was Dakota, who is injured, but luckily alive. Greg shelters her and reassures the woman, who is visibly in panic. He puts her inside the car and takes her to the city. Back in the city, Jim receives his daughter Kelly, who, wanting to go to the movies with her friend, asks her father for money. Jim questions his daughter's wish, since previously they had agreed to have dinner together, because for some time they have not done so due to the separation of the parents. Jim, knowing his daughter a little, questions whether she is really going to the movies with her friend or with the young Billy. Kelly states that it will only be with her friend, but the sheriff rudely says that he does not want to see her getting involved with Billy, because he shows himself to be a young man who does not aim for a promising future, and his record of minor crimes without penalty only grows. Jim distrusts Kelly and irritates her. She remembers how he treated her mother when she was still a child. Upset, she leaves the room, saying that she will move from the city where he works and leave him alone. Later, Jim goes to the hospital to talk to Dakota, who is still tormented by what she experienced the day before. Dr. Bob, with the help of the nurse, injects a sedative, leaving her asleep. Jim enters the room soon after, and after seeing the worrying state of the young woman, goes to talk with Greg. Questioned about what he knows, Greg states that he only saw the young woman running desperately and claims that she was fleeing from something terrifying, most likely Bigfoot. Jim notices that the man is relapsing into alcoholism and disbelieves the acquaintance as narrative. However, being one of the best policemen and hunters who have ever passed through the force, Greg states that in the forest there is more than just bears, something that leaves such animals terrified. Later, the doctor, after checking Dakota's injuries, tells Jim that such wounds could not have been made by human aggressors due to the angle of the cuts, and adds that bears do not leave marks like the ones seen on the young woman. Bob reveals that a bear's claws cut like razors, but the wounds appear to have been made with something that tears the skin like a chainsaw. Jim questions what he means. Bob says that he put in the report as a bear attack, but tells the sheriff that, after years working in that way, he knows that there is something still not clear to him, and even the coroners do not know how such wounds appeared on the bodies found in the forest. Confused, Jim leaves. Then Bob is called to see something on Dakota's body, which shocks him and his nurse. A few minutes later, Jim goes to the house of Mrs. Dayan, the caretaker of Dakota and other young people. However, the young woman was always despised within the family environment, since she is not the woman's blood daughter, being considered only an object to bring money to them. Jim asks to see Zeke, the leader of that place. He wishes to notify him about his daughter. The lady claims that the man is arrested and with a gun frightens the sheriff, who soon after leaves the place, knowing that he cannot enter without permission. Later, at night, we see in an open field a drive-in cinema. Stubbornly, Kelly went out to meet Billy, disobeying her father. The boy shows himself rude, trying to have something more than a kiss from the young woman. When he tries to force her into something more, a strong and hairy creature suddenly appears. The beast drags Billy out of the car and kills him. In panic, Kelly runs out and tries to hide behind another vehicle. However, the shelter is discovered, and the young woman is grabbed and dragged into the darkness of the forest. Some hours later, the authorities arrive at the place, and Jim desperately searches for his daughter, but discovers that she is not there, only her boyfriend, brutally dead. The coroner says that the bears are going crazy, attacking even in places of human movement, but Jim begins to question whether they are really animals causing the deaths. Before leaving in search of his missing daughter, Jim is questioned by reporter Kendall about the fact that they are going into the forest in search of something that generates an attractive narrative for the crimes that have been occurring without precedent. Jim warns them to stay away from the forest, warning about the natural and unknown dangers. Meanwhile, in some hidden cave within the creature's lair, the beasts delight themselves with the victims they captured, and young Kelly is brought to where they store the food, a place that makes the girl scream in terror. Luckily, Kelly finds Beth, who is still alive, which explains why some beasts leave some women alive for a while. Beth recounts, in a delirious and hopeless way, that there is nothing to do and that their fate is sealed, being in the end used as food for the hairy monstrosities. The next morning, back to Jim, he finds Greg already in good condition and sober, but the man still claims to be certain that a creature inhabits the forest and is causing so much terror and deaths. Jim does not give much credit to the fact that his friend says it is Bigfoot, but, needing help to discover what is behind the brutal crimes, he reconsiders Greg's position. In the forest, the reporters from the big city venture miles inside to create content for the news. It does not take long for Kendall and Mark to find a footprint of the famous Bigfoot, a horrendous creature that lives hidden in the woods and mountains. Kendall, however, does not believe it is a real footprint and does not fear the fact that there may be a dangerous monster in the forest. Mark questions whether they should return and ask the sheriff to accompany them, but the journalist does not want interruptions. At this moment, he presents a weapon, which will serve as personal defense if needed. At the police station, the sheriff and his companions prepare the weapons and then go for a hunt in the forest. Before leaving, they find Zeke outside, waiting to confront the sheriff for having given the alert about Dakota's condition. For him, Jim's involvement is despicable, and he asks him not to get involved with his family's affairs. However, he came to accompany the group through the forest, since the city's military apparatus is scarce. Later, they are seen inside the forest, seeking clues that lead them to find something. They follow Zeke, a hunter who knows part of the forest, since he has lived inside the park since youth and knows how to identify probable dangers ahead. Meanwhile, Kendall prepares for a recording. She begins with a suspenseful voice to attract the viewer, but suddenly a growl echoes in the forest, not far from their position. When Mark uses the camera to observe the surroundings, he sees, behind a tree, a humanoid and hairy monster watching them. In panic, he pulls his colleague to run desperately, screaming for their lives. The officers hear the screams and decide to follow in that direction, but Zek claims that they are going the wrong way. They argue and end up splitting up. Unfortunately, for not knowing the path, Kendall ends up falling into a pit prepared as a trap. Luckily, she does not fall to the bottom, where she would be gravely injured by stakes. Mark helps her out, and the two continue running from the beast that pursues them. They soon find a cabin and shelter inside. In the place, they find the fugitive Eddie, who, thinking they are officers hunting him, points his weapon. Suddenly, the creature destroys a passage, and terrified, the two journalists flee. Unfortunately, the place is full of traps, and Mark steps on a landmine, which kills him. Kendall takes his weapon and fires several times at the monstrosity, causing it to fall as if dead. In the forest, going to a region of dense woods, Zeke comes across the entrance of the cave. He blows a kind of whistle that echoes a sound similar to that of the creatures, and then hides. Moments later, while Kendall laments the loss of her friend, a fierce creature appears and attacks her. Luckily, the sheriffs arrive in time and fire their large-caliber weapons. Believing it to be enough, Danny turns around and, upon doing so, is stabbed in the back, dying in the process. More creatures approach and force the two to run desperately. One of the great beasts almost reaches them, but Zeke appears and surprises it, firing accurate shots and taking down his bestial enemy. At the cabin, they return to see their injured friend, but seeing that nothing can be done, Zeke ends the man's suffering and then says that he knows where the beast's lair is. Reflecting for a moment, Jim is terrified, knowing that his daughter must be with the creatures, and the worst already crosses his mind, losing Kelly forever. Even with the imminent danger, Jim wishes to rescue his daughter, and knowing that she needs to tell this story to the world, Kendall decides to follow him. A few minutes later, they approach the cave and hear a cry of fear echoing inside. At this moment, Zeke decides to tell a story. Long ago, the ancient inhabitants of that region told the story of an isolated clan where a beautiful woman was desired by all the men of the tribe. Revolted by their perversity, a powerful shaman cast a curse upon those men, condemning them to live for many years until they lost their humanity and turned into hairy beasts, violent and dominated by fierce instincts. Over time, only cursed males remained, incapable of generating females of their own species. In order not to disappear, the creatures began to kidnap human women, using them as receptacles to generate their offspring. That is why they still live hidden in that region. They capture women, devour the men who accompany them, and protect their lair to keep the monstrous lineage alive. Jim quickly enters the cave with Kendall, while Zeke prepares an explosive at the entrance and hides soon after. Back at the hospital, the doctor talks with Dakota, and they confirm that she was abused by the creatures, a fact that repeated many times before she managed to escape. Inside the cave, Jim is surprised by one of the creatures. Before he is killed, he receives Zeke's help to defeat it. Kelly's screams echo through the cave, and Jim follows the sound, but encounters a stone blocking the path. Meanwhile, the monstrosity tries to properly touch Kelly, who struggles against the beast's enormous strength. Before the worst happens, Zeke detonates the bomb, causing a tremor and a landslide inside the cave, an event that makes the creature move away from Kelly. Courageously, Jim advances with Zeke, who uses a blade to defeat the enemies ahead. Fortunately, father and daughter reunite and need to leave the cave before the other creatures return. There is a narrow passage, and the two women manage to get out before the collapse happens and traps Jim and Zeke inside. Luckily, they find another opening that leads them to the surface and decide to lure the remaining creatures into a bold plan to finish them. They use the head of one of the alphas to attract the aberrations. Using the weapons that still remain, they fight bravely, killing as many as they can. However, the beasts are many and possess the strength of 10 men. Unfortunately, the fate of the two is death. Fortunately for Kelly and Kendall, they gained enough time to escape and move away from the forbidden area of the park. In the end, the two managed to survive, saving themselves from the atrocities of the creatures.